Close your eyes for a moment and imagine Los Angeles. The traffic on Wilshire Boulevard, the low hum of the city. Coffee shops, dog walkers, museum goers strolling beneath palm trees in the afternoon sun. Now, peel back 10,000 years. The boulevard is gone. The concrete is gone. In its place, a dense savanna of juniper and oak, warm breezes carrying the heavy, sweet scent of petroleum seeping silently up through the earth. The hills in the distance shimmer. The ground in certain places is not quite solid. It glistens. A herd of ancient horses moves across the flats, their hooves brushing through long grasses. One of them steps wrong, just a few inches off. It feels the ground hold its foot, not like mud, not like water, something different. Something that grips with a patience that has no end. The horse pulls, the ground pulls back. And 40 feet away, hidden in the shade of a low-hanging oak, a massive cat with knives for teeth lifts its amber eyes from the shade and watches. What happens next is a story 50,000 years in the making, and its evidence is still here, still bubbling, still being pulled out of the ground, right in the middle of one of the most famous cities on Earth. This is the La Brea Chronicles. To understand La Brea, we first have to understand what lies beneath the skin of Los Angeles. Roughly 1,000 feet below the city's surface, sitting quietly under the Fairfax District and the Miracle Mile, is one of the most oil-rich geological formations in the world, the Salt Lake oil field. The Los Angeles Basin, by volume, holds more oil per unit than almost anywhere else on the planet. This isn't incidental. It is the root of everything. Over millions of years, marine algae and ancient sea life buried in deep mudstone decomposed under pressure and heat into crude petroleum. That petroleum migrated upward through porous sand layers, pooling in an underground arch of rock, a natural reservoir. Then, the restless tectonics of California, with its constant earthquakes and faulting, cracked that arch at its peak, creating what geologists call the Sixth Street Fault. Slowly, inevitably, the oil began to climb toward the surface. When it arrived, something remarkable happened. The lighter, more volatile fractions of the petroleum evaporated away or were consumed by bacteria. What remained behind was heavy, dense, dark. Natural asphalt, or bitumen, what the Spanish-speaking people who first settled here simply called brea, tar. These seeps created shallow pools across the landscape. Some were small, no deeper than a few inches. After rain, they were covered with water. After autumn, they were hidden under fallen leaves. On a warm afternoon, they looked like nothing more than a patch of wet ground, a glistening invitation. And over the next 50,000 years, this patch of ground became the greatest fossil trap in the history of the world. The site we now call Rancho La Brea, today nestled inside 13-acre Hancock Park on Wilshire Boulevard, has been identified by the International Union of Geological Sciences as the richest Pleistocene fossil site on Earth. Since formal excavations began in 1913, scientists have recovered more than 3 million specimens from over 100 excavation pits. Bones, seeds, pollen grains, insect wings, and even individual feathers, all preserved in asphalt's dark anaerobic embrace. They represent more than 231 species of vertebrates, 159 species of plants, and 234 species of invertebrates. It is not a graveyard. It is a library, and every bone is a word. To walk through the Los Angeles of 50,000 years ago would be to enter a world almost beyond imagination, yet deeply familiar, as if evolution had assembled its greatest project and put it on display. The landscape was not the golden, drought-scorched chaparral of modern Southern California. It was cooler, greener. Oak woodlands sprawled across the basin. Juniper grew in the hills. Shallow lakes and rivers wound through meadows where the 101 freeway now runs. And through this world moved a cast of creatures so immense, so improbable, they seem to have been invented for mythology. Columbian mammoths, not the woolly kind, but their larger, less shaggy cousins, moved in herds across the flats, their great curved tusks sweeping arcs through the grass. Western horses, camels, ancient giant bison the size of small cars, and massive ground sloths called Paramylodon harlani, which stood taller than a grizzly bear and weighed over a ton. These were the herbivores of the Los Angeles basin. And where there are herbivores, there are predators. The dire wolf, Aenocyon dirus, was not a wolf like the ones we know today. Heavier, more powerfully built, with crushing jaws designed for breaking bone, it was the most common large predator in Pleistocene North America. The bones of more than 4,000 individual direwolves have been recovered from La Brea alone. They likely hunted in packs, coursing through the grasslands like biological machinery. There were American lions, Panthera atrox, the largest felid that ever lived in North America, standing nearly 4 feet at the shoulder, heavier than an African lion and as large as a modern polar bear. And then there was Smilodon fatalis, California's state fossil, the apex predator of apex predators. More than 2,000 individual Smilodons have been recovered from La Brea, more than from any other site on Earth. And what those bones tell us is extraordinary. Smilodon fatalis was not sleek. It was built like a wrestler, massive, barrel-chested, with forelimbs so disproportionately muscular that radiographic analysis has described them as exceptional even by the standards of large predatory cats. It stood roughly a meter tall at the shoulder, weighed up to 280 kilograms, heavier than most modern lions and tigers, and moved with a low, deliberate power. Its canine teeth, the famous sabers, grew up to 18 centimeters long, serrated on both edges like steak knives. It could open its jaw nearly 120 degrees wide, almost twice the gape of a modern lion. And yet, despite the drama of those teeth, they were fragile. Smilodon did not bite through bone. It used its extraordinary forearm strength to pin prey down, then delivered a precise, deeply calculated bite, most likely to the throat, severing blood vessels with surgical efficiency. Recent research published in Scientific Reports in 2021 revealed something even more remarkable. A Smilodon specimen from La Brea, designated LAC-MHC131, showed severe hip dysplasia, a degenerative condition inherited at birth, not caused by injury. This individual had been crippled since kittenhood. It could not have hunted independently, and yet computed tomography imaging showed the hip socket had been remodeling, slowly, chronically, for years. This animal had lived to adulthood. Something had fed it. Something had cared for it. The evidence, though never conclusive, points tentatively toward social behavior, toward a family. The predator behind the most fearsome teeth in Ice Age North America may have been, in some fundamental way, tender. Now we return to that ancient afternoon, that horse, that glistening ground. The mechanics of the asphalt trap were elegantly, brutally simple. The seeps produced thin, shallow coatings of bitumen, often no deeper than a few inches, that were easily concealed beneath water, dust, or fallen leaves. Small animals, insects, and birds were trapped like flies on flypaper, immobilized on contact. For a large animal, the process was slower, but no less certain. A horse stepping into a seep would sink only a few inches, barely noticeable at first. But asphalt is not like mud or quicksand. It does not respond to thrashing. It grips. The harder the animal pulled, the more surface area of leg was pressed into contact with the bitumen, and the stronger the seal became. Depending on temperature, asphalt is far stickier on warm afternoons. A strong, healthy animal might escape, but many did not. And once a large herbivore was mired and exhausted, the real cascade began. The distress calls, the smell of blood, the attention of every predator within earshot. Researchers estimate that a single entrapment event, dooming perhaps 10 large animals, would only need to occur once per decade, over 35,000 years, to account for the millions of fossils found at La Brea. What they describe is not a constant river of death. It was episodic, occasional, but each event was a chain reaction. A sloth gets stuck. Its cries carry. Dire wolves gather at the edge, drawn by instinct to what appears to be an effortless meal. But the ground does not care about the difference between prey and predator. The wolves step forward. The asphalt grips their paws. More dire wolf bones have been found at La Brea than the bones of any other species. 4,000 individuals. They died not because they were weak, but because they were hungry. Because they were doing exactly what they had evolved to do. Smilodon followed the same path. The great saber-toothed cat, sensing an easy kill, approached the struggling herbivore and found itself locked beside it, those extraordinary forelimbs pressing deeper with every attempt to pull free. The pits recorded this pattern so precisely that the ratio of carnivores to herbivores at La Brea is almost perfectly inverted from what you'd expect in nature. In a living ecosystem, herbivores outnumber predators enormously. At La Brea, carnivores are vastly overrepresented. The trap selected for hunger. It punished ambition. Then, approximately 13,000 years ago, something changed. The last great chapter of the Pleistocene was closing. Temperatures were rising. The Bolling-Allerød warming period had begun, and the dense oak-juniper woodlands of Southern California were thinning. A mega-drought crept across the region over centuries, drying rivers, reducing the great grasslands, and transforming the ecosystem from the roots up. And humans had arrived. A 2023 study published in Science, led by paleontologist F. Robin O'Keefe, and using 172 radiocarbon-dated specimens from La Brea, pinpointed the extinction with startling precision. Around 13,200 years ago, the herbivores began to disappear first. Camels and sloths going silent in the fossil record as early as 13,600 years ago. Then, around 13,000 years ago, the carnivores followed in rapid succession. Sediment cores from nearby Lake Elsinore revealed a simultaneous spike in charcoal, evidence of sustained, massive wildfires burning across Southern California for roughly 300 years. The region's temperature had risen by approximately 5.6 degrees Celsius over the preceding millennium, drying the landscape into tinder. The fires, set partly by a changing climate and partly, researchers hypothesize, by the hands of the first humans moving through the region, turned the woodlands into chaparral. The megafauna lost their habitat. They lost their prey. They lost their world. Around 13,000 years ago, the record at La Brea shifts. Saber-toothed cats, gone. Dire wolves, gone. American lions, gone. Ground sloths, gone. Mammoths, horses, camels, gone. What remained was the coyote. The adaptable, opportunistic, stubborn coyote, still here today, still trotting through the hills above Los Angeles, as if nothing particularly surprising had happened. In 1901, a geologist named W. Orcutt walked the grounds of Rancho La Brea and recognized for the first time that the bones being found in the asphalt were not modern cattle or ranch animals. They were the bones of something ancient, something extinct. 12 years later, in 1913, George Allen Hancock granted the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County excavation rights, and in just 2 years, 750,000 specimens were pulled from 96 sites. The sheer scale of what had been sleeping in the ground beneath the city stunned the scientific world. Today, the La Brea Tar Pits is the only active urban Ice Age excavation on Earth. It is the only place in the world where fossils are being discovered, prepared, studied, and displayed all in one location, within the bounds of a major metropolitan city. In 2022, it was designated one of the first 100 global geological heritage sites by the International Union of Geological Sciences, a recognition equivalent in prestige to a UNESCO World Heritage designation. The collections, approximately 3 million specimens, have been the subject of more than 400 scientific publications. They have rewritten what we know about predator-prey dynamics, about social behavior in extinct carnivores, about the mechanics of mass extinction. And they are still being found. When the Los Angeles County Museum of Art broke ground on a parking structure in 2006, construction crews struck a deposit of extraordinary richness. 23 enormous crates, the project was named Project 23, were extracted, each one a dense mass of asphalt and fossil material encompassing over 90 species. Among them, a near-complete skeleton of an 18,000-pound Colombian mammoth, now nicknamed Zed, whose bones tell the story of a life lived in extraordinary detail. The asphalt never stopped working. It is still bubbling through the ground today, still rising along the 6th Street fault, still pushing slowly toward the surface of a park where children play and paleontologists kneel in the grass and pull the past into the light. There is something quietly astonishing about the fact that the greatest Ice Age fossil site on Earth sits in the middle of a city of 4 million people. That school children eat their lunches on the same ground where saber-toothed cats once roared, where dire wolves circled, where mammoths sank. But perhaps it is not astonishing at all. Perhaps it is exactly right. We are always standing on top of something. Every city, every road, every field is a palimpsest, layer upon layer of time, each generation of life pressing its story into the one beneath it. The asphalt at La Brea does not discriminate between eras. It preserved the bones of the Pleistocene's most fearsome predators with the same patient indifference with which it now occasionally traps a small bird or an unlucky ground squirrel. The ground does not know it is famous. It simply does what it has always done. What Smilodon fatalis tells us, this creature of extraordinary power, whose fossilized hip showed that someone once cared for it, is that survival has always required more than strength. It has required relationship. It has required the capacity to hold on, together, through a changing world. And what La Brea tells us about extinction, about those 300 years of fire, about the 5.6-degree shift in temperature, about the silent disappearance of 7 species from a fossil record that had preserved them for 50 millennia, is a story that asks something of us. Not guilt, not despair, but attention. The Earth has been keeping records far longer than we have. The seeps are still rising. The bones are still there. We just have to be willing to read them.